Good morning, everyone. My name is Brian Majonga. I'm a business lecturer at Sibande TVET College, Sibande campus. Today, we are going to be dealing with topic 3, which is project scheduling. So this is what we are going to cover, an overview of our lesson today. And maybe before I continue, our lesson is going to be broken into two parts. So in the first part, we are going to be looking at explaining the purpose and importance of a schedule of activities on a project. And then secondly, we are going to explain the development process of a schedule in accordance with industry practices. And then we will differentiate completing a project within the shortest possible time and at a specified due date. And then in the second part of the lecture, we will identify and explain the use of documents required for identified activities, and then we identify and record activities according to their dependencies. So let's look at the purpose of scheduling. Scheduling a project is an important part of project planning. Remember, before you can embark on a project, you need to plan thoroughly so that your project can be a success when you are implementing it. So why do we need to schedule? A schedule specifies work that must be done. It also indicates who must do it and when the project work must start and when it must finish. So it gives us the timeline of the whole project. It also gives us the timeline of the different activities as well as the different tasks that are in a project. So a schedule also indicates the task dependencies. We'll deal with it later. It also indicates the resources required to complete the work. What are you going to need? Are you going to, in terms of tools, in terms of equipment, in terms of some material resources, and even the human resources that are required there? Then a project also indicates the supplier of these resources that you need in your project. And then it also indicates the cost to finish the work on time. When you have your resources, you have your resource list, then you can now look at how much is it going to cost you to get each one of the costs. And then at the end of the day, what you're going to have is your budget. So you'll end up having a budget of the whole project. And then, so how do you get to have a complete schedule? Here are the steps that you must follow. Firstly, you need to identify the major tasks and milestones of the project. What are the tasks that are supposed to be accomplished in the project? And then what are the major milestones in that particular project? And then when you have identified that, then you need to identify and detail those tasks chronologically. How do these tasks follow each other? What is going to come first, followed by what, and what's next, until you get to the end? Then you need to estimate each task's duration and indicate start and end dates. It is very important to know how long each task is going to take, because if you want to be, at the end of the day, be able to estimate how long the whole project is going to take, you have to start it from the smallest task, which we usually call a work package. So you need to start from there, and then you get bigger as you combine the different tasks and the different activities together until you have got the whole project duration. Then you also need to also establish the task dependencies. Here what we mean is that the tasks in a project, they relate to each other. So those relationships between the tasks need to be shown to say how does task A relate to task B. Some of the tasks will run one after the other. Some of the tasks will run concurrently. They can run at the same time. And since we said the tasks have got different duration, so it means some tasks are going to get finished along the way, even though they might have started at the same time, whilst the other tasks will be continuing. Then you need to assign resources to each task. What are we going to need to do each and every task? Let me say maybe from here, we can use an example of building a house. So you can start to say maybe your milestones, your foundation, then you have your building the walls, you have your roof, your plumbing, your electrifying. So those are your milestones. But say you are starting now, a foundation does not just come to be. There are a number of tasks that must be done for you to end up having a foundation. So maybe you can start by saying planning. You want to come up with a plan. That's a task that you're going to do. Then what are you going to need? You are going to need maybe an architect who's going to do that. You're going to need the money to pay that architect. So you see, so it goes on. For you to have completed the foundation, you're going to add cement, you're going to have bricks, you're going to have stones, and all such things. Then you need also to document assumptions. When we talk of assumptions, we're talking of those things that you assume, that you believe that they are going to be, they're going to happen, or they're going to be there. So it's not like you are certain that this is going to happen, but you look at, after you have done your feasibility study, you then see to say, this is going to be happening. Say maybe you are building, and then you can say, maybe during the time that you are going to be doing our construction, it's not going to be raining. So it's an assumption, but the weather is very unpredictable. So, but you need to list all these assumptions that you have. They will help you in your scheduling. Then you need to transfer the schedule into a scheduling tool. There are various scheduling tools, but the one that is commonly used can be your Gantt chart, where you can indicate all these activities. And I think from our previous lectures, we have spoken about the Gantt chart. So you can put all this information about your schedule now on a Gantt chart, where you have your activity, the activity name, the resources that are required there, the duration, as well as even the person who's responsible for the project. And then the Gantt chart, it also helps us to actually show the relationship between the different tasks, and when the tasks are going to start and when they are going to end, because we use blocks there. And then from there, given all of this information that you now have, you can be able to estimate how long the whole project is going to take. And then when all this is done, you now need to also have the budget of the project. If you have added up all these milestones, you have added up how much it is going to cost you, for example, to do the foundation of the project, how much is it going to cost you to build the walls, how much is the roof going to cost you, how much is the plumbing going to cost you, how much is the electrifying the house going to cost you. You put that together, and then you come up with the overall cost of the project, which we call the budget. And then you also need to have your project schedule approved by the sponsor and the key stakeholders. It must be approved, because remember, the project, you are not doing it for yourself. You have been employed to do a project, to run this project, to ensure that this project is implemented successfully. That's your responsibility. So, but there are people who are interested in this project. Those people and organizations must be approached through methods that are set up. It could be through a meeting where people meet and then they discuss. And then you have it approved by the sponsor and the stakeholders. And then when it is approved, you then distribute it to all those stakeholders who must have the schedule. And then you are done with scheduling. So these are basically the steps that must be followed. So you can actually have a checklist containing these elements to say, have I done this? Have I approached the stakeholders? Have they approved? If there's anything that needs to be done, maybe they may refer it back to you to say, can we fix there and there and there and there? Then you take it back to them again until it is approved, and then you can distribute the completed document. Now let's move on to the duration. How do you do your scheduling? There are basically two ways of estimating time. We have got the shortest possible time as well as the specific due date. The shortest possible time, we also call it the most optimistic duration. Here what we are saying is that you are doing your estimation, you are doing your schedule, and you are not taking into account any unforeseen circumstances. Like I said before, you have said it's not going to rain, but you have forgotten that the weather can change anytime and it can rain at any time. So, or maybe once you are waking, electricity can go. So, and you really need it. So, such things, the shortest possible time or the optimistic duration, it is developed from a very optimistic and positive approach, where it is assumed that nothing is going to go wrong during the lifetime of the project. So things that it doesn't consider maybe delays that can be caused by weather. It doesn't consider delays due to short delivery of supplies. It also doesn't consider delays caused by machinery and equipment breakdowns. This is very normal that machines can break down at any time. So usually when we are doing project estimation, we tend to look at these factors because they are important. Instead of just rushing to say we are going to take 3 months, but there are other factors that can intervene that can cause a delay. And then delays, it also doesn't consider delays due to lack of knowledge and skills of employees. At times you can hire people, yes, they are CVs, they are saying they can do this, and even during interview they can impress. But maybe because of lack of experience, there are some things that they may not be able to do effectively or as per expectations. So those people, maybe they may need to be trained. And training, it might mean downtime in terms of productivity on the project itself. So that can cause a delay. And then at times, these people, they might not be available. At times there can be some labor issues that can also happen. And all those issues, if say there can be a strike during the lifetime of a project, then it means the project is going to be delayed. So all those factors, they are not considered when we are using the optimistic duration. However, the best way is to use the specified due date. This is a more realistic approach to project scheduling. In this case, we look at the activities that are to be completed, and we look at a number of things, a number of information that we have to gather, and before we can establish a schedule. So we need to look at things like the usual duration of tasks. Maybe, unless if you are not, if you are managing the project for the first time, but if you have managed a similar project, you have experience from those projects that can tell you to say, such kind of projects, they usually take this long. Or you can also search, you can also try to find out from those people who have completed such projects, get that information, and then you come to know as to how long did such a project take. You can Google and find out the challenges even that they faced. What happened in the previous similar projects? You want to construct a stadium today, and then you may need to find out to say what happened when they were constructing the FNB stadium. What were the challenges? What were their successes? what were the lessons learned from the F&B stadium. So if you have that information, then you can be able to estimate your project with a reasonable accuracy. And then what could cause delays, all those things, they need to be looked at. The risks that can be there, they need to be looked at as well. Remember, we say the starting point of doing a schedule after you've got your scope plan or your scope laid out is to break your project into manageable parts. And we call that decomposing the project. And the outcome of decomposition of a project is a work breakdown structure. So a work breakdown structure then becomes a very important tool that you will use when you are doing schedule, because it is the tool that tells you all the activities that are supposed to be done. What are the activities, what are the tasks that are supposed to be done, what are the milestones, and what is each milestone made of. So the work breakdown structure, it helps us to define and organize the scope of the project accurately and specifically. It facilitates assigning of responsibilities, because in any particular task, it requires certain skills, it requires certain resources that needs to be utilized there. And then it also facilitates allocation of resources and estimating activity costs. And then it enables monitoring and controlling the project. Remember, when a project is being done, it needs to be, we need to monitor if we are moving in the right direction in terms of producing the right product, also in terms of the quality of that product, and also in terms of the time that is given, our timeline. Are we still on schedule or not? And then we also need to look at, are we still within the budget? Remember, we always talk about the triple constraints, which are your scope, your costs, and your time. So that monitoring, it covers those three constraints. We want to ensure that we have produced what we have been asked to produce. We want to ensure that we have produced it during the specified time. We also want to ensure that we have done it within the limits of our budget. The work breakdown structure, it also helps the project team to know what must be done to achieve the objectives. Each project has got objectives, so the team members, when they look at the objectives of the project versus the work breakdown structure, they will say, okay, so when they say we want to do this, we must achieve this, we must achieve it through doing 1, 2, 3, 4, as specified on the work breakdown structure. Then it also enables the project managers to verify the specifics of deliverables with stakeholders. During the life of a project, there are usually status meetings or progress report meetings where stakeholders, they want to know how far the project is. So when you have got a work breakdown structure, it's very easy for you to be able to refer and say, okay, these are the activities that have been done, and according to our schedule, this is what is left. So the work breakdown structure becomes very important. How do you do a work breakdown structure? Work breakdown structures, they are different depending on what you are doing, but basically this is what you may need to do. Firstly, there's a product breakdown structure. It shows the physical assemblies. Say you are making different products. It tells you the different assemblies. It tells you the sub-assemblies. It tells you the components, the parts needed to manufacture the product. Let's say, for example, you are building a homestead, and the homestead is made up of, maybe it has got the main house, then it's got the staff quarters, and maybe it has got a separate garage, and then it will have a perimeter fence, around the homestead, and then it will have landscaping. So you see, these are different components, these are different parts of the project. And then at the end of the day, we'll say we have a homestead, which is complete, made up of those 5 components that I have said. But in each of these components, it has got a number of things that are supposed to be done there, some installations that are supposed to be done. Then we say, all that put together, we have a homestead. So the different assemblies, when you build the main house, that's an assembly on its own, because you are putting together different items and different components together. You build the garage, maybe it's a 5 lockup garage, then it's also a component, it's a product on its own, and then you have your perimeter fence on its own, your staff quarters on its own, and then the landscaping on its own again. So it will indicate, that work breakdown structure, it will indicate what is involved in each and every one of those components. And then the second one is the contract breakdown structure, which shows the relationship between the client and the contractors. It can happen, in some cases that you can use different contractors, especially on big projects. Like, let's say maybe on that project, you are going to have a contractor who's going to construct the main house. Then you are going to have another contractor who's going to construct the garage and the staff quarters. Then you are going to have another contractor who's going to construct the perimeter fence. And finally, the one who's going to do landscaping. Those are different contractors. So it must indicate, this work contract breakdown structure, it indicates that there are going to be all these contractors, and the work that they are supposed to be done is also broken down into smaller parts that are easier to understand. And then you also need to, at times, depending on the magnitude of the project, especially on big projects, you can use the transport breakdown structure, where you're going to have a large equipment and maybe some bulky materials that are being transported. In some cases, some of the materials and equipment that can be used is even imported. So you find out that it becomes very important that you can also have a transport breakdown structure. Because remember, the transportation of those items can result in a delay of the project. So you need to identify, to identify what needs to be transported, and it is being transported from where, and how is it going to be transported. Some of the things, if they are light and small, they can be transported through air, but some they are transported via the sea. So it depends on where the product is coming from and the nature of the product itself. Then we also have got the system breakdown structure. The system breakdown structure, it is done where a project, in fact, we should say most of the projects that are produced, the products that we produce are systems. They must work. If you take like a house is a system on its own. It is a shelter, but it's got other things that it also has. Because when you are there, when you're in the house, you can plug your different appliances, meaning that it has got the electrical system. So we have the house itself, we've got the electrical system, then we have got the water system that is also running in the house, and many other things. So all those are systems, but they are subsystems of the main system. The system itself, it is the house. And then the house is made up of different subsystems. So it will show us these different subsystems, how they relate with each other and how they also relate with the main system as well. Then finally, we look at the product, the project life cycle, which represents the logical subdivision of the sequence of work into project phases. All these breakdown structures that you have spoken about, they can fit into life cycle structure, because the life cycle structure now, it tells us the project from beginning to end, when the project is going to start and when the project is going to end. And then the last part that we are going to look at in this lecture is gathering information for scheduling. You need to identify, as we said, you need to identify the different activities, the jobs and the responsibilities. You need to prioritize and sequence activities. Which activities come first and followed by what? And then there are a number of documents that you need to also come up. You need to come up with your work breakdown structure, as we have said. You need to have a task list. You need to have a project management plan. You need to have a risk plan. You need to have a quality plan, communication plan. So you need to detail the requirements for the project schedule. All of these items, the ID, the name of the project, the work breakdown structure number, the task name, the task duration, planned task start and finish date, the dependencies, percentage complete, how are you going to measure the status of the project, and then the resources that are assigned, the hourly rate of each resource, especially if the resources such as machinery, they are being hired, they are usually charged maybe per hour. So you need to know. And even labor force, your labor, especially if it is casual, they are also paid per hour that they have worked. So you need to have that. And then you have the total cost column. So basically, in this lecture, we have covered the purpose of the project scheduling. We have also looked at the steps that are followed when you are doing a schedule. We have also looked at what is required, or the importance of creating a work breakdown structure, as well as the different documentation that is required when you are to do a schedule successfully. So for now, we are going to stop here, and then we are going to continue and finish up the scheduling next. Thank you.